Alright, welcome back to the Roblox course, and in this lecture we're going to talk about properties and, well, everything to do with properties and a short little overview over some specific properties. So first things first, we have already seen properties, a few times come up. It's this little window down here at the right. It might be somewhere else for you, but if you have the layout of Roblox Studio as I have, then it should be somewhere. If you don't see the properties window somewhere, you can go up here to view and make sure that this is on. So the properties here are on, and then you're going to see it most likely down here to the right. And now it's important, the properties are empty except for when you have a certain part selected. And the first thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at the properties of this part here. Now to do this, we're actually going to make this property window a little bit bigger. So I'm actually going to drag it up here, and then it's going to take up the entire space. And then we're also going to make it a little bit bigger as well, like this. Because right now we actually want to look into the properties themselves and not anything else. So when we have a part selected, we can actually see up here, this is the property of a part, and then the name myPart2. Now we can filter the properties. So for example, I'm looking for anchored. Where is anchored? And then I can give it in, type it in, and then there we go. Here it is anchored under behavior. And then when we delete it again, we are back at the normal properties view. So as you can see, there are different types of properties. So I'm going to quickly put them all in. And as you can see now, we have four, well, let's say big sections, and those can be opened or closed. And let's just open all of them. It's appearance, data, behavior, and the part. And some of them, some different types of objects share properties with other objects, but we're going to look into that soon. First of all, we're going to look into the properties of a part. Now, we have selected this part, and as you can see, it has a brick color of new yellow. It does cast shadows, so this would be a Boolean, or a true or a false. And this we can, for example, just set to false, and then it doesn't cast shadows anymore. We have the color. This is, of course, related to the brick color. The brick color, of course, are predefined colors, and the color then specifies this a little more. You can also hover over them and see that there are some examples given, or a brief description given for what it is. The material is plastic. Now, we've seen the material before very briefly up here at model in the Roblox Studio. We saw that we can change the material with this as well, but of course we can also go through the properties, and we could, for example, say, well, this is glass now, and then, oh, little much, and then when we look at this, it sort of has a little bit of a reflection property to it, so the light reflects off of it a little bit differently than the plastic. Yeah, those are some materials. It is best to, first of all, play around with them a little bit if you, to have like the certain effect that you want. But right now, we're just going to keep it at plastic. The reflectance is simply that, how reflective the material is. So now it's completely reflective, a 1, so the scale goes from 0 to 1, and now, as you can see, it reflects the skybox back, so the clouds and all of those are reflected back. Let's turn that off again. Now, we've already seen the transparency before, so we can make it completely transparent, or, 50% transparent. We've seen that in the referencing part right here, the transparency property that we have accessed via the script and set to 0.5, so 50%. Now, those are some of the appearances. There are also data properties. Some of them you cannot change, right? So what's very important is this class name. As you can see, the string name of this instance most derived class. Now, this is basically a very complicated way of saying this is a part. That's basically it. There's a mass that is defined. Then the name. This is the name that we've defined here in the Explorer. And the orientation is the rotation, basically. So if we rotate this, let's say like this, then it's going to be 0, 0, 0. And if you rotate it like this, then it's going to be 0 and then negative 90 degrees in the Y, and then 0 degrees in the Z axis. The parent is workspace. So if we go back to the Explorer, we can see if we have this part selected, we can see, okay, the next part that is sort of indented to the left is the workspace. And if we close the workspace, we can also see that all of the children of the workspace are also no longer visible, and therefore the parent of my part 2 is workspace. If we were to change this via a script, or indeed here, then the location here in the Explorer would also change. So that's something to think about. The position can be changed with the move tool, of course. We've seen that already. And it can, of course, be changed inside of a script as well. We're going to look at that in a later lecture in way more detail as well. The rotation velocity and the velocity itself, we are not going to look at right now. This is also done in a later lecture for an example for what you can do with those. Then behavior. So anchored is a Boolean, and there you can see determines whether or not a physics acts upon the part. If true, part stays anchored in space, not moving regardless of any collision forces act upon it. If false, the physics work normally. So right now we don't have either part anchored. If it is anchored, then it's just going to float in the air. And basically gravity is not going to be affecting this part. Now, then there is archivable. This simply is, as you can see, determines whether or not an instance can be saved when the game is closed, attempts to save the game. So there are some things that are a little more advanced that are not really, let's say, needed for us right now, but I'm still going to go through. Can collide simply means that if there can be physics interaction with other parts, you have a collision group ID. This is really not all that interesting to us right now. Locked simply means that it cannot be changed. So as you can see there, it determines whether building tools, in-game and studio, can manipulate this part. If true, no editing is allowed. If false, editing is allowed. So we can lock this, and then, for example, scripts cannot change this part. Massless simply means that it has no mass. Right, and then we have something for the part. We can have some custom physical properties. If we check this, then we can actually open this up and change the density, elasticity, weight, friction, and the friction weight. Those are some physics constants that we could change for this part. That's really, I would say, a little bit more advanced stuff. We don't need that right now, but it's important to see it. The root priority, also not important for us right now. Let's just ignore the root priority, really not of interest for us right now. The shape is simply the shape, of course. And then the size is simply the size, which we can also change by scaling this. Right. Yeah, so those are basically the properties of a part. Now, what we're also going to look at, and we're going to make this small again. Oh, no, not quite. There we go. What's going to happen is when I now, for example, select the terrain, as you can see, this has actually changed. So we have under appearance, we have water transparency, water wave. We have, we still have this, but we have different appearance properties here. If we select the base plate, I believe this is almost exactly the same. Yeah, but we also have surface and surface inputs, for example. As you can see, there are plenty of different properties here. And this is something that is you need to think about because some different object types, so different down here in the data class name. So right now, the base plate actually is also a part in that sense, right? However, it is a certain type of part, which also has the surface inputs and the surface as parameters. Different types of objects have different properties. This is why we can't, go through everything and every one of them. I just wanted to show you the ones that are from part, because we are going to go through a few of them in the coming lectures. And yeah, that is basically sort of an overview over the basic properties. Going forward, we're going to look at some other ones as well, of course, but right now I think this is going to suffice. If there are any questions regarding properties, of course, feel free to ask, and I'll be sure to respond. And yeah.